A long-awaited spectacle. For decades, scientists have been predicting it. Residents of California have been preparing for it, but no one knows when it will happen. What if it happens today? The San Andreas Fault line has been eerily silent for more than 300 years, which could mean that it is ready to unleash a major megaquake that will change the Golden State forever. But what exactly is the San Andreas Fault line, and why do experts believe that it is overdue for a major earthquake? Tune in as we look at this ticking time bomb that could literally turn California upside down. What is the San Andreas Fault line? The San Andreas Fault line runs almost the entire length of California, measuring approximately 800 miles. It is a transform boundary between two of the major tectonic plates that make up the Earth's lithosphere, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. These plates are constantly moving, with the Pacific Plate moving northwest relative to the North American Plate at an average rate of about 2 inches per year. The movement occurs because of the subduction of the smaller Juan de Fuca microplate beneath the edge of the larger Pacific Plate. Because of friction along the fault line, most of the energy released by the moving plates is stored in the rocks along the fault in the form of elastic strain rather than being released as continuous small earthquakes. Instead, the strain accumulates until the rocks break suddenly, releasing large amounts of energy in the form of seismic waves. And when that happens, it can be devastating. Why is it called the San Andreas Fault? The fault line was named after a landmark known as the San Andreas Canyon, which is located near the town of San Andreas in Calaveras County, California. The canyon is named after the original Spanish land grant, which translates to Andrews Creek. Where does the San Andreas Fault start and end? The San Andreas Fault line begins near the Southern California city of Los Angeles and extends north through the state, ending near Cape Mendocino on the coast of Northern California. How many people live near the San Andreas Fault line? More than 16 million people live within 30 miles of the San Andreas Fault line. This includes major cities such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland. Which cities will be most affected by an earthquake on the San Andreas Fault? Several cities in California would be significantly affected by an earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. Some of the most severely impacted areas include Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland. These cities are home to millions of people, and their infrastructure would be significantly disrupted by a major earthquake. Los Angeles, the second largest city in the United States, would likely experience widespread damage to its buildings, roads, and bridges. San Francisco, one of the most iconic cities in the world, would also suffer significant damage, especially to its historic buildings and infrastructure. San Jose, home to Silicon Valley, would likely see major disruptions to its tech industry due to damage to its data centers and other facilities. Oakland, a major transportation hub, would experience major disruptions to its port and airport, as well as its rail and highway systems. In addition to these cities, smaller towns and rural areas along the fault line would also be significantly impacted. Which cities are safe from the San Andreas Fault? While no city is completely safe from the effects of an earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, some cities in California are located far enough away from the fault line to potentially experience less severe impacts than others. Some examples of cities that are relatively safer include Sacramento, Fresno, and Bakersfield. However, it is important to note that even cities that are not directly hit by an earthquake can still experience strong ground motions and potential damage due to the secondary effects of an earthquake, such as landslides, fires, and tsunamis. Therefore, it is crucial for all Californians to be prepared for an earthquake regardless of their location in the state. What is the history of earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault? The San Andreas Fault is one of the most active faults in the world and has produced some of the most powerful earthquakes in history. The first recorded earthquake on the fault was in 1857 with an estimated magnitude of 7.9. This earthquake, known as the Fort Tejon earthquake, caused widespread damage in the Los Angeles and San Francisco areas and is considered to be the largest earthquake in California history. Since then, there have been numerous earthquakes on the fault ranging in magnitude from small tremors to large, damaging events. The most recent major earthquake on the fault was in 1994 with an estimated magnitude of 6.7. This earthquake, known as the Northridge earthquake, caused widespread damage in the Los Angeles area and resulted in more than 60 deaths and 9,000 injuries. What is the risk of a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault today? According to the United States Geological Survey, USGS, the risk of a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault is higher than many people realize. In fact, there is a 7 to 10% chance of a magnitude 7.8 or greater earthquake occurring in the next 30 years in California. Additionally, there is a 25 to 40% chance of a magnitude 6.7 or greater earthquake occurring in the same time frame. These figures underscore the need for Californians to be prepared for a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. While it is impossible to predict when an earthquake will occur, it is important to take steps now to mitigate the potential impacts of a major event. Is California prepared for a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault? Despite the high risk of a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, California is not as prepared as it should be. According to the USGS, only about half of Californians have a disaster plan in place and only about a third have an emergency kit with enough supplies to last 3 days. Additionally, much of California's critical infrastructure is vulnerable to earthquake damage, including its roads, bridges, and hospitals. While the state has made some progress in strengthening its infrastructure, much more needs to be done. In conclusion, California is facing a serious threat from a potential major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. With millions of people living in the path of the fault line, the potential for loss of life, injury, and property damage is high. While it is impossible to predict when an earthquake will occur, it is important for Californians to be prepared. By taking steps now to strengthen our infrastructure and ensure that our families and communities are ready for an earthquake, we can better protect ourselves from the potential impacts of this natural disaster. How often does the San Andreas Fault produce earthquakes? The San Andreas Fault is an incredibly active fault line and produces earthquakes of various magnitudes frequently. On average, there are about 100 earthquakes that occur on the fault each year, although most of these are small and go unnoticed. However, the fault is also capable of producing large, damaging earthquakes, although these events are much less common. In general, the southern section of the fault is more active than the northern section and produces more frequent and larger earthquakes. The most recent major earthquake on the fault was a magnitude 6.4 event that occurred in 1994. What would a large earthquake on the San Andreas Fault do to the surrounding area? A large earthquake on the San Andreas Fault would have devastating consequences for the surrounding area. The violent shaking caused by the earthquake could lead to widespread damage to buildings, roads, and other infrastructure. The rupture of the fault could also cause the ground to shift and displace, leading to landslides and other geological hazards. Additionally, the earthquake could trigger other faults in the region, leading to a cascade of seismic activity. The economic impact of a major earthquake would be significant, with billions of dollars in property and infrastructure damage. The disruption to transportation and communication networks could also have ripple effects throughout the region and the state as a whole. Will there be a tsunami if an earthquake occurs on the San Andreas Fault? While it is possible that an earthquake on the San Andreas Fault could generate a tsunami, it is not very likely. Tsunamis are typically generated by undersea earthquakes that occur at depths of several miles. The San Andreas Fault is a land-based fault, and earthquakes that occur on land generally do not produce the type of strong underwater pressure necessary to generate a destructive tsunami. However, if the earthquake were to occur at a shallow depth or if it were particularly strong, it is possible that a small tsunami could be generated. It is important to note that even if a small tsunami were to occur, it would likely only affect coastal areas immediately adjacent to the fault line and would not pose a significant threat to other areas. What should you do if an earthquake strikes while you are driving? If an earthquake strikes while you are driving, pull over to the side of the road and stop. Avoid stopping under bridges, overpasses, or power lines. Stay in your car with your seatbelt fastened and be prepared to move if necessary. If there is a lane that is clearly marked with a broken yellow line, pull over into it so that you are out of the way of traffic. If you are in an area where there is no shoulder, pull off the road as far as possible and come to a stop. If possible, stay in your vehicle until the shaking stops. If you feel like continuing to drive, proceed slowly and cautiously, checking for any road hazards such as cracks, debris, or fallen power lines. If you encounter any issues, report them to the authorities. What should you do if an earthquake strikes while you are at home? If an earthquake strikes while you are at home, follow these steps to stay safe. Drop, cover and hold under a sturdy table or desk. If you are unable to get under a table, take cover next to an interior wall away from windows and large furniture. If you are in bed, stay there and protect your head and neck with a pillow. After the earthquake has passed, check for any damage to your home and surroundings. Be cautious of potential aftershocks and use a flashlight to inspect your home as it may be difficult to find light switches in the aftermath of an earthquake. Use the buddy system to help evacuate family members from the house and assist anyone who may be injured. Contact emergency services if necessary and listen to any instructions they provide. As we've seen, California is overdue for a major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault and it could happen at any time. By understanding the science behind earthquakes and taking the necessary precautions, we can all help to ensure that we are ready for when it does strike. Don't wait until it's too late. Take action today to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you have any questions or concerns about earthquakes or other natural disasters, please feel free to reach out to us in the comments section below. We'd be happy to help in any way we can. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative videos like this one. Stay safe and be prepared.